Thank you for joining us on another episode of Ask the Experts right here on Talk 1370. This is a show about your health, your life, and much more with our rotating cast of experts. To catch up on past episodes, you can visit talk1370.com/experts. And of course, if you would like a question answered on our show, feel free to email us, asktheexperts@talk1370.com. So joining me in the studio today is President of Townbridge Homes, Aaron Levie. Aaron is a conscious land developer and a green home builder here in sunny Austin, Texas. Aaron, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me back.
For our listeners that may have missed you the last time, would you mind reintroducing yourself and letting them know who you are?
Sure. My name is Aaron, and I am part of a family-owned home building business for over 40 plus years. And we've been in Austin for about 10 years, building semi-custom and custom homes as well as boutique communities.
And this is all over the Austin area, correct?
Yes, mostly in South Austin.
What are we here to speak about today?
So today, the thought was to talk about finishes and features in a home, things that you would want to be looking at or thinking about, whether you are doing a remodel, building a new house, buying a house, all those kinds of things.
Well, that's great. So what are the finishes and features of a home, and what does that mean to me or our listeners?
Yeah, so a finish is basically anything that makes the home look complete. So we're talking about flooring, your walls, your cabinetry, your countertops, your light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, anything that finishes out the house on the interior or the exterior so it doesn't look like an incomplete job. Features that go along with that are just, the functionality of those things, as well as, if you get into automation now where everything is going.
To me, it just sounded like you said all the fun stuff, the things you see
exactly.
in a home improvement
the
commercial.
Lipstick.
Yeah. So I mean, everything that people save on Instagram stories and stuff like that.
Exactly. Thank you, House, and Pinterest and Instagram.
Yeah. So why is it important to understand what makes good finishes in a home?
So, it could be important for a number of reasons. Like I said, if you're building, buying, remodeling, in a market like this, which I would call a hot market, you do have to be careful of what we would call, quote unquote, a lipstick job, which is basically somebody, maybe they came in, they bought a property, they made it look nice by putting in nice finish, but in the end, you might discover that you've got some underlying issues that are getting covered up. So that's one thing just to consider when you're looking at finishes. Another thing is just the quality of the finishes, because a poor quality product might look good at first glance, but then after time, whether it be through use and just any kind of lack of maintenance, or if it requires special kind of maintenance, it's never going to look the same in time. So those are things you want to be considering as you're making some decisions.
In your experience, have you run across any of these situations?
Oh, absolutely. Everywhere you go.
So what are one of the things, what are some of the first things to consider when thinking about quality finishes?
So we can, maybe I'll break it down for you into different types of finishes that might kind of give a better overview and understanding of ways to think about it. Now, when I build a house, and it's not to discredit the box stores, but when I build a house, I want to make sure personally that I'm not putting something in that people could say, oh, I saw that at Home Depot or I saw that at Lowe's. Not that you can't get those things there. You just have to be considerate of the fact that there's a reason why their pricing is a certain way. They're getting it in bulk quantity, and they're probably getting it from sources that are not ideally the best quality source. It's more about quantity. But when you're thinking about a house, just for example, the cabinetry, there's a lot of different ways that cabinetry can be built, and that can kind of dictate to you how the rest of the house may be built as you start to look into these things more deeply. Cabinetry, it's a box construction, and it can be made out of a couple different products, most commonly furniture board or plywood. And if it was a furniture board product, not that there's anything wrong with furniture board, we actually use that all the time. You just have to be considerate of the fact that, like, if something were to spill inside of a cabinet and it just sat there, it's actually going to cause swelling. It's the kind of thing you can't really replace. You can only cover it up if something like that happens, unless you rip it out and fully replace it. So plywood in that scenario is a better product. It's also more durable. Plywood's just going to be all around stronger, but it is more costly. So something to consider there. Another thing about cabinets, generally you can build them on site, you can get them manufactured. If you build them on site, typically that's a little bit more of what we would call a custom job, and also would be most likely more expensive. Manufactured products, whether it comes with a factory finish stain or paint, you can't ever really replicate that factory finish in the field. No painter, even the best, they basically, it's like smoking how they get the paint on there so smoothly and fine. And it's really hard to accomplish that in the field. So there are some benefits to those manufactured cabinets as far as the finish look of it is concerned. Another thing are the door and drawer fronts of cabinetry. So they could be made of solid wood. They could be made of a laminate, which basically is a furniture board or some sub-material. It could be a dense fiber, like a medium density fiber or heavy density fiber. But when you get into laminates on doors, those may delaminate in time, depending on the type of wood, whether it's oak versus hickory versus maple. They all have different strengths. Things to think about, because they could be, depending on the size of a door, it could warp in time. So you could be looking at a long-term issue that maybe you're not expecting at first glance. Something else with drawers to look at, it became really popular in the last number of years, but dovetail drawers, and it became like this kind of coin word. Everyone loves to use it. But actually, dovetail construction goes back even to like Egyptian time. So it's basically the corners of construction, and they would do it on like buildings even. The corners, how they just kind of interlock with each other. They're cut in a way that they become one solid piece and they interlock, and it's virtually impossible to destroy it. And if you get a dovetail drawer that's made out of solid wood, it's going to stand the test of time and wear for sure. Other ways that cabinet drawers could be built, they could just be glued, stapled, it could be plywood, could be solid wood, could be a laminate material, but all of those have the potential to separate, delaminate. So ultimately on a cabinet with the drawers, you do want to look for something that's solid wood if possible. And then lastly, with cabinetry, while we're on it, differentiators could be the hinges or the slides. So, if you soft close hinging, if you have a door and you swing the door shut, it'll quietly close itself versus, sometimes if you have a roommate or if you have kids like I do, and if you don't have soft closing doors and they close it, then they're slamming all the time.
Make that loud noise.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like they would probably wear out a lot quicker as well.
They do, and they wear the door out eventually. And then other things on the drawers, the drawer guides can also soft close as well, or they could just not, and same situation with how they slam. But then you could look at, does the drawer have a, what they call a 3/4 extension versus full extension, where when you open the drawer, do you see the back of the box entirely? Is it fully out of the cabinet, or is there part of the drawer that's still kind of in the cabinet that you have to reach into? A nicer cabinet would have a full extension drawer. Other things along these lines, while we're on cabinets, let's talk about countertops because they go hand in hand. Countertops are a sensitive and difficult subject because it's a visual thing. People really love the look of a great countertop. But
yeah, and it's like what's in fashion right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
are we doing marble, granite, or wood?
Right, and a lot of people like the marble or Carrara look, or even people are into the soapstone look. Unfortunately, they're not practical uses. I mean, we're talking about, especially in a kitchen, if you're cooking and you use your kitchen, you've got heat, you've got cutlery, you've got staining, you've got all these factors that you need to think about. What am I putting into my kitchen? And a soapstone, a marble is considered a soft stone. So typically, you're going to wind up with chipping. You're going to get stains. It can't handle the heat. It can't handle cutting, anything like that. More common that we've seen a kind of a step off to the side of those would be like granites. And granite's another natural stone. It's a great option for your kitchen. You just have to be considerate of a couple things. Just like the marble and soapstone, it's a natural occurring stone. You got to seal it. A lot of people don't seal their product. And in time, that is going to show wear as a result. It also cannot handle the heat. it also, would not be suggested to be cut on. I personally would recommend Quartz. Now, Quartz is a natural product, but it's engineered. So it's created into these slabs using quartz. It's much more durable. It's stronger than any of the previously mentioned. It doesn't stain. It won't scratch. It's heat resistant. Although I wouldn't say take your pot out and leave it on the counter immediately after cooking on it. It's antimicrobial, and now that we're starting to focus much more on indoor quality of living in the home, that's something you want to be thinking about. There are other cheaper options, laminated countertops, like Formica type things, or tile. Concrete is another one. Again, I wouldn't, if it's an economic decision, obviously you have to make a decision by economics, but you do have to consider the same factors there. You can't use it, no heat. It may clean easily sometimes if it's a laminated product, but you can't cut on it. You don't want to put any heat on it. And then when you get into bathrooms, you've got some flexibility. They do make cultured marble products, which you've probably seen a lot of times in multifamily. That's what they're using, or they're using a laminated top. But cultured marble, even the engineered marbles, which look a little bit more like of a quartz or granite type look, again, they're still soft. And you have to consider wear and tear, what your lifestyle is like. Do you have kids? That's always something to think about. If you're going to spend money on this stuff, you want to spend it wisely. And then lastly, if you were doing countertops on an outdoor kitchen or somewhere outside, just things to think about. You can't use quartz outside. It's not designed for that. Granite, that's a great option. Concrete is a good option, although concrete does need to properly cure if you're going to do it, but concrete could be a great option for outdoors.
And we're speaking about those like outdoor kitchens where that include your grill and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or if if you're a gardener and you've got a little setup where you want a little slop sink to like clean and have a countertop out there, maybe that's something to think about as well.
And if you're just joining us, you're listening to Ask the Experts right here on Talk 1370. We're sitting down with Aaron Levie, the president of Townbridge Homes. If any of this interests you, you can visit their website, townbridgehomes.com. Again, that's townbridgehomes.com. We got to step aside for a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Ask the Experts right here on Talk 1370. Welcome back. You're tuned in to Ask the Experts right here on Talk 1370, the show about your health, your life, and much more with our rotating cast of experts. Today's expert is Aaron Levie, the president of Townbridge Homes. Aaron and I are speaking about the finishes and features of a home and what it all means in the end. So, Aaron, the first segment, we were speaking about different cabinets that you can get for your home, the countertops and stuff that you can get for those kitchen countertops and whatnot. But let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about VOCs. What are VOCs and why should I care about those?
So VOCs are volatile organic compounds. You can find them in almost anything in the house, whether it's flooring, cabinets, paint, the trim material, whatever it is. And basically they can be human-made products or naturally occurring, but all of these things, these elements have a high vapor pressure at ordinary room temperature. So basically, the molecules are evaporating or sublimating over the course of time into the air of your home. So these are really important because we've made a large move into indoor air quality in the construction world because we actually spend most of our time, at home or indoors in buildings. Some of those chemicals, just for example, formaldehyde, chlorofluorocarbons, all those things could be found in these products. And you do want to be sure that you're purchasing quality product to avoid indoor air quality issues. Just for example, we found that an indoor air quality could have 2 to 5 times as much VOC indoor than it would outdoor, if that gives you an idea. And all of these things can lead to respiratory, allergic, immune issues, all those kinds of things that we want to be considering, especially if you're raising a family or
like asthma and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, paint. I mean, everyone goes and buys paint at some point to do something in their house, to clean up or whatever the case may be. And you do want to kind of look, if you could, for a low or no VOC paint, because paints can contain hydrocarbons, ethyl acetate, acetone, all the kinds of things. Like, if you thought about any of those chemicals, you wouldn't want to just put your face over a bowl of it and breathe. So why would you want to paint it on your walls? Cabinets, we were talking about cabinets, so we might as well touch on those again. They could have added formaldehydes, urea formaldehydes, all the kinds of things that are used in adhesives. California, always the front runner when it comes to the U.S., has set some really strong regulations about these adhesives. And we all, as a result, are able to use those guidelines as a system to find better products. So, just for an example, they have a system called the CARB system. It's the California Air Resource Board. And they look into products, and products can be rated by this system for low to no off-gassing, safer VOC products.
You mentioned California leading the way for a lot of new regulations when it comes to building homes or keeping good air quality within your home in the United States. But California just recently also put a requirement for solar panels and on new construction. Is that correct?
Yeah, they did. We actually, with Townbridge Homes, have made it an effort that we are putting solar standard on all homes that we build as well. Same thing, we just want to kind of be ready for when the regulations do hit anyway, because it's the right thing to do. Ultimately, if you have, by having solar on homes in general, it reduces brownouts, blackouts, because you're lowering the load of what's needed for capacity on the entire grid. If you're grid tied, which we are here in the city of Austin, you have to be grid tied. And actually, now that you're talking about solar, I would like to dip into solar a little bit more on the next time we get together, because we're going to talk about, conscious construction, and solar obviously is a really big part of that too.
Absolutely.
I'm going to bring somebody in who can share some
and not that solar panels feed off of heat, but we sell more energy in the summer when it comes to refrigerating our homes and our businesses than we do any time of the year, and that's when we do have a lot of those blackouts.
Exactly.
But what are some of the green features for homes, and why do they matter?
Yeah, well, they matter. In my mind, they matter quite a bit, especially because as a builder, I think it's a social responsibility. But as a homeowner, you want to think about these things. Now, the term, quote unquote green, that's gained a lot of traction over the years. And a lot of times people are using it as just a marketing tool. So you do want to be careful about what that means. But, some things that could be truly green features and make a big difference both to the quality of your home, your daily life, and even like your monthly cost for your utility bills. Some of those things could be like your HVAC system. Now, air conditioning systems are rated by what they call the SEER. It's a seasonal energy efficiency ratio. And what they're doing is they use a calculation. They take the typical cooling season, the output that you need, and they divide it by the total electric energy input during that same period of time, and it comes up with this number. So you'll find if you're shopping for AC systems or you're buying a home that has an AC system, maybe you want to consider it. Now, I would suggest, and the Austin Energy Green Building Program requires it as well, as a minimum of a 14 SEER. And basically, the higher the SEER, the more efficient, meaning the less your utility costs, the less energy it's actually going to use to produce comfort in the home. Something else really important, I feel, would be EPA has a system called their Water Sense. It's a way of determining. It's voluntary for manufacturers to participate. It's for plumbing, faucets, fixtures, and basically what they do is they anything that demonstrates a minimum of 20% or more efficiency than any regular counterpart for whatever faucet or fixture it is earns the Water Sense seal. And that's saying, for example, if you have a sink that is putting out 1.5 or 1 gallon a minute versus 2.5 gallons a minute. And this stuff adds up. I mean, water is actually going to become one of our most expensive commodities, whether we want to admit it or not. I mean, the hotter it gets on Earth and the more people there are and the less clean water we have, it could be a pretty concerning issue.
Well, it's 1% of the water on the Earth is drinkable.
Is actually drinkable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Other things in green, quote unquote, green features, lighting. CFLs are a less expensive option. They last about 3 to 5 years, but we've actually been seeing a phasing out of that due to the increase in technology and availability of LED, making it more affordable and accessible. And obviously LED, I mean, you don't have to change the light bulb for 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. So, other things here in Austin, it's really important your landscaping. People could put in a landscape that could look visually beautiful, but you have to know what's in your landscape. Are they native plants? We live in a pretty dry climate. Now, although Austin it's interesting if you're aware, but Austin actually receives almost as much rain as Seattle does, but we just get it in these larger storms versus kind of like a constant mist. Mm-hmm. But due to our soil, we can't absorb that stuff at the rate that it drops. So everything still needs to be able to survive through drought type conditions. So, make sure you've got native plants. Make sure if you do have an irrigation system, drip irrigation created by the Israelis in a desert climate is the most effective way to water your plants with the least amount of water possible. So if you have the ability to do so, obviously that's a large cost saving and water saver. And if we're talking about saving water, definitely something you want to think about. The types of grass, there are drought tolerant grasses that don't require heavy watering. A lot of people are familiar with grasses like St. Augustine. I mean, that grass needs water like nobody's business if it's going to stay hardy and healthy and look fresh and green. But there's plenty of options out here. Bermudas, buffaloes, zoysia, different varieties. A lot. Texas A&M does a lot of work on developing some of those turfs that are drought tolerant. And then, another important feature I would say when you're thinking about is insulation, because we cook out here in Texas, and as far as like us baking physically in the sun. And so your home is doing that, and you want to think and make sure that the envelope of your home is really going to provide the best insulation possible. Now, insulation bats are the most common insulation, but there are more efficient options out there. A blown-in blanket system, also called bibs, and basically they put up a netting system on the studs, cut holes, and then inject it with a loose fill fiberglass. So it's still fiberglass, but it's what they call a total fill fiberglass. So it creates a much tighter pillow effect of an envelope. And then there's spray foams as well. And spray foams, we were talking about VOCs. Spray foam does have a high VOC content at application, but as soon as it's cured, it goes away and it becomes neutralized.
All right, Aaron, we have just about a minute left. I want to get to one more thing quickly. So just because a home has nice looking finishes, does that mean that it's a well-built home?
You would like to think so, but unfortunately not. And kind of like we were saying before, this concept of like lipstick construction, it really always comes down to the guts. The guts is what's going to determine quality construction. So don't be fooled by shiny, fancy, trendy looking finishes in a home, because all they are the quote unquote lipstick. And if you have a home inspector or you're working with a contractor on a build, you just want to be sure that you're getting a better look at the bones themselves and the trade work, the plumbing lines, the AC ducts, the type of electrical wiring, all that stuff. That stuff determines really what a well-built home is made of.
Well, Aaron, it was a pleasure having you on the show again today, and again, providing our listeners with great information on what they should be looking for when it comes to finishes and features inside their homes or a potential new home as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Again, that's Aaron Levie, the president of Townbridge Homes. To get more information or get in contact with Townbridge Homes, you can visit townbridgehomes.com. That wraps it up for this segment of Ask the Experts, but don't go anywhere. We have much more coming up right after these messages. Stay tuned.